It is invisible to the human eye, just 1/10 of a micron in size. Tiny as it is, it has the power to mutate into something humans could struggle to adapt to, becoming a potent and even deadly invader, with the ability to make as many as 40% of us ill. What is this mysterious virus, and how do we prepare for it? Join us as we examine bird flu. Preparation, not panic. Hello, I'm Wendy Brockman. What is the bird flu? How can we prevent the spread of this virus and stay healthy? Would you know how to take care of your loved ones if they became ill during a pandemic resulting from the bird flu? Join us as we explore the answers to these and other questions. H5N1, the avian influenza virus, or bird flu as many call it, landed on the radar screens of health officials in 1997 when the first cases of human illness emerged in Hong Kong. Since then, scientists have monitored bird flu, tracking its development around the world. Today, public health officials in Colorado warn it's time for us to be prepared, not panicked, concerning the potential for a pandemic outbreak resulting from bird flu in our country. But first, what exactly is bird flu? The avian influenza virus is just that, a virus that makes birds sick. It has mostly impacted poultry in other parts of the world, but in some cases humans have gotten it from a bird and become ill or died.
Right now, the way people are becoming infected is directly from birds, and it's from handling these sick birds.
It is a highly lethal virus in that it kills more than half the people who get it, but it is not yet a highly contagious virus, and so it is not spreading rapidly.
Bird flu in humans first surfaced in Hong Kong, according to the World Health Organization, which counts 18 cases and 6 deaths there in 1997. In the years since, it spread to a dozen or more countries, primarily in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, but still impacting primarily poultry.
In many of these countries, these birds live with families. These birds wander around, they're in their homes. There's a lot of interaction with birds.
Handling of poultry and birds is much different in our country, says Assistant State Veterinarian Dr. Keith Rohr.
Most of our poultry production systems are housed indoors, so there's a separation or protection from wild or migratory birds. If you look in Asia, there's a lot of commingling between wildlife and production systems.
The danger or fear is that H5N1 could mutate into something easily transmitted from person to person, leading to a pandemic that is a worldwide epidemic. Pandemics differ from seasonal flu because we have little or no immunity to the new viral strain that causes them. And our annual seasonal flu shots, while still recommended, would only specifically protect against seasonal flu viral strains for which they're designed, not against a new pandemic viral strain.
There are a lot of vaccines under development and a lot of work going on with vaccines. One of the problems is that until we know that there is a pandemic and we know the strain of that virus that's causing that pandemic, we can't necessarily make a vaccine that matches it well.
It can take 6 to 9 months to develop effective vaccines for a specific strain. In the early stages of a pandemic, a vaccine may be unavailable or only available in limited quantities. There are more challenges with pandemics. They tend to last longer, come in waves, and impact as much as 30 or even 40% of the population, disrupting everyday life. It's happened before.
What we do know is that unless history dramatically changes, we'll continue to see at some point a pandemic strain that will cause more illness than we're used to.
In the 1900s, 3 pandemic flu episodes spread their misery across Colorado and the world. The most recent in 1968, when the so-called Hong Kong flu took an estimated 33,000 lives in the United States. And though that's roughly the same number of lives taken annually by seasonal flu since the 1990s, in 1968, It was considered part of a worldwide pandemic. Before that, the 1957 pandemic claimed nearly 70,000 lives in this country. But the historic pandemic most likely to send chills through the minds of many public health and emergency preparedness experts today is the 1918 pandemic.
That killed over 500,000 people in the United States. That's a huge number of deaths. And the illnesses that it caused was even greater than that.
It was called the Spanish flu, and it delivered a truly crushing blow, infecting half the world's population, according to some, and taking between 50 and 100 million lives worldwide. In each case, pandemics followed the introduction of a viral strain new to humans. For that reason, all eyes are on H5N1.
The fear that we have in public health is that if it changes and recombines or changes in a way that it can rapidly spread from human to human, that's what we're worried about, is that then we might have a pandemic.
But many experts are also quick to point out each flu strain is different.
There are gradations of influenza problems. The 1918 was a special event. What we're probably going to see is something much less than that.
Others say we're just better prepared today.
Even though it was a very severe pandemic in 1918, if we had the same sort of severity, we know much more about influenza virus than we did then.
Still, the little town of Gunnison, Colorado beat the odds back in 1918, according to a study by the University of Michigan. There were no deaths reported there from the second wave of Spanish flu. Researchers credit it to the social distancing policies of the town leaders. So, how is influenza spread? Call it the ick factor. Sneezes and coughs. Let the germs fly.
Influenza is spread mostly by large droplets. So when people cough, they cough out respiratory secretions, and influenza is spread by those droplets that come out when you cough. It may also be spread somewhat by very small droplets that hang around in the air and by touching things that are contaminated.
Viruses need a live host to thrive, but may live for hours or even 2 days, according to some, just waiting for someone to come along.
So if someone in the office is coughing and sneezing and spits the droplets with the virus on surfaces and somebody else comes along behind them, whether that's on a table or a piece of equipment, or even if you're standing next to somebody and they cough and sneeze on you, those droplets have lots of virus in them, and the viruses, when they come in contact with what we call mucosa, which is the mouth, the nose, around the eyes is the most common areas, that then can get into the body of the uninfected person and infect them.
Offices, schools, any public area is a perfect place to pick up a germ. Experts say it can take 2 to 5 days for it to incubate in your body and produce symptoms, but sometimes only 1 day is all it takes before beginning to shed the germs to others.
So you can see if you can stay far enough away from people so that their sneezes don't reach you, and the medical professionals say 3 to 5 feet's enough, and if you can keep from touching your mouth and nose with infected fingers, you're 2/3 of the way home to avoid getting the flu.
And perhaps the most important prevention tool is washing our hands.
It's really fairly worrisome. In some studies, about 1/3 of Americans actually don't wash their hands at all.
And those who do may not be doing it as well as they should.
They should do it, number one, and they should do a better job of it, number two. And under those circumstances, they prevent an awful lot of infections, not only with pandemic influenza, but with other germs as well.
If you're one of the ones who's fallen out of this good habit, a little demonstration may get you back on track. Tri-County Health invited Lakewood City Public Information Officer Steve Davis to join in an exercise with glow germs. The glow-in-the-dark powder simulates real germs and brings to light startling results that will tattletale on your hand-washing habits.
Rub those together.
Once the fake germs are on, Jessica has Steve wash his hands with and without soap to show the difference.
Okay, Steve, so now we're going to have you rinse your hands off, and don't use soap this time. We want to portray what happens when you don't use soap when you wash your hands.
Okay.
Now what we're going to do is bring out this black light and put your hands next to it and see how well you washed your hands without soap. And you can see here that basically all you did was smear the germs all over your hands.
Gosh,
and
yeah.
you can see all around your ring.
Man, and it feels like you've rinsed them off pretty well. But
All
I
you
didn't
is
do
smear
much
the
removal
germs.
at all, did
Yeah.
I?
Before washing his hands with soap and water, Steve rubs his eyes and nose, something most of us do every day, spreading the germs on our hands to our face.
I'll have them all over the office in no time.
Then it's back to the sink for the soap and water test.
So the first thing that we like to see people do is to use soap, of course, and get a really good lather. And it can be any soap. It doesn't have to be a antimicrobial soap. It can be any soap.
Okay.
Even dish soap works.
All right.
And you want to lather for a good 20 seconds. And a lot of people accomplish this by singing the ABCs or happy birthday to themselves.
Using a paper towel to turn off the faucets or using your elbow is also recommended, a habit Steve's already picked up.
So now we're going to try the test once again with the black light.
All right.
So go ahead and show us your hands. And we're going to see that they're looking a lot better. And you can see there's just a few little spots that are illuminating, but nothing like we saw the first or second time.
Well, that's quite a difference.
It's not hard to imagine that if the glow germs were really flu germs, that in the course of Steve's day, greeting others, visiting the office kitchen, and making Xerox copies, he managed to spread his germs all over the office before he washed his hands. If you can't wash your hands, popular alcohol-based sanitizers are a substitute, but only if your hands aren't too dirty.
Hand sanitizers are effective, however hand washing is better.
Between hand washings, try not to touch your nose, eyes, or mouth, since spreading germs begins with sneezes and coughs, of course, and most of us probably grew up with the warning to cover our cough. It keeps the germs from flying all right, but now they're on your hand.
Most people don't tend to then run and wash their hands.
So these days, proper sneeze etiquette has a socially acceptable twist, sneezing or coughing into the crook of your arm.
Yes, you might get some mucus on your arm, but which is worse? Having it on an inner shirt sleeve or on the surface of your hands where you're touching everything? That's going to be a major change in how we look at things like sneezing when and if the bird flu epidemic ever hits. Sneezing into hands is not good. It's not good now, and it won't be good in the future.
What would a pandemic look like in our community? Many experts remind us it's an educated guess. But if 30 to 40% of us were impacted, most likely many services would be too.
If we had something along the lines of 1918, which we try to plan to because that's the worst we've had, we would have major disruption in transportation, getting food, getting those sorts of things to the grocery stores.
In a pandemic, there could be stronger guidelines, not just about staying home when sick, but also when caring for others who are sick. Social gatherings such as sporting events, classes, concerts, or movies could be canceled. Employees could find themselves working at home for weeks. Other social distancing or infection control methods could be implemented.
Yes, there will be disruption. Yes, it will not be comfortable. But if it is like 1918, our goal will not to be keeping things running the way they always run, but to get through it with most people alive and most people as healthy as they possibly can be, even though we do have some disruption.
So, you've covered your cough and washed your hands and kept your distance from others who are sick. And in spite of your best efforts, you or a family member come down with the pandemic flu. What is it going to feel like? Health experts say it's likely to be similar to or worse than seasonal influenza.
One of the things that happens with influenza is that the temperature spikes very quickly, and you feel very tired and exhausted and feverish and chilling very quickly. You were well once and now you're sick.
During a pandemic, hospitals and clinics may be full. Caring for sick ones at home may be the first and only option in most cases. You should check with your personal health care provider about your specific health concerns. But the following enactment offers some basic home health care information acceptable to many public health care experts concerning care of loved ones at home. When caring for someone at home, it's best to isolate that person from others and have one caregiver who is relatively healthy and not at high risk for influenza or its complications.
Ideally, if you could have a separate room with a bathroom for the patient, that would be the ideal.
If not, try to limit the activity of others in the bathroom shared with the sick family member. Since the influenza virus is airborne, masks are advised for both patient and caregiver when they're both in the room.
This will keep the secretions and the droplets being spoken and coughed out a little bit more under control.
Masks tend to get wet fairly quickly. It's important to remove them without touching the inside and immediately wash your hands.
As you take it off, touch the sides and then throw it away, not touching any of the moist area.
High fevers are common with influenza. You'll want to take your family member's temperature several times each day. For adults, an oral thermometer is okay, preferably a digital one, not the old mercury thermometers. Ear thermometers are also okay. Whichever one you choose, be consistent. For infants and young ones, the temperature is usually taken under the arm. Record the temperature and keep accurate records of any fever-controlling medications being taken as well.
Temperatures for a person with influenza could be as high as they start out at 102, but as you're getting up toward 105 and you're not able to break the fever, that either might mean that you are having more dehydration or there's something else going on, possibly a bacterial infection.
Dehydration is also common with influenza. You'll need to encourage water or perhaps Gatorade. And Cheryl says often room temperature drinks are preferred over ice-cold drinks. For small children, Pedialyte is another choice that helps keep them hydrated and stabilizes their electrolytes.
The best thing that you can possibly do is keep track of their urine output, how many times they get up to go to the bathroom. If it's a light color urine in the toilet and it's clear, that's a good sign that they have an adequate amount of hydration.
Though influenza is a respiratory illness, not a stomach ailment, people with the flu might not have much of an appetite. Commonly, the so-called BRAT diet can be offered.
B-R-A-T, that stands for bananas, rice, applesauce, tea and toast if it's appropriate, if they can stand the strongness of the flavors again.
With adults, severe influenza symptoms may last 3 to 5 days or longer. And though your sick family member will be very weak, you should encourage some movement every couple hours.
If you lay in bed too long, it decreases your circulation. So up in the chair, maybe while the bed is straightened or fresh linen are put on.
Because influenza is a respiratory illness, breathing exercises may need to be encouraged. As always, check with your doctor to be sure.
Ideally, deep breathing and coughing is a good idea for a patient. Now, they're going to be coughing quite a bit just with the illness itself. If you have sore rib and abdominal muscles from all the coughing, you can support a pillow against your stomach and breathe in through your nose, blow it out slowly through your mouth, and then on the third time, breathe in, and then cough it out forcefully.
Keep good records of temperatures, food and fluid intake, and urine output, and report to your doctor carefully.
He's doing fairly well. He took 4 ounces of Gatorade and had part of a banana.
In addition to caring for the patient, caregivers will need to clean and disinfect their family member's room on a regular basis. When cleaning, gloves should be used. Wash your hands before putting on the gloves. After cleaning, remove the gloves carefully, trying not to touch the outside, and immediately wash your hands. Public health care experts recommend disinfecting the bathroom each time the patient uses it.
Using the regular, common, ordinary bleach is the best, not the special scented ones that we now have. And using approximately a 1/4 cup of bleach to a gallon of water will allow you to spray that area down and wipe it down.
Changing the sheets on a daily basis is also recommended. Again, gloves are recommended for handling soiled linens. Place dirty items carefully in a clean pillowcase to carry them to the laundry. Use hot water, soap, and a hot dryer setting. After cleaning, remove the gloves carefully, trying not to touch the outside with your hands.
Grab the edge of my glove, pulling my glove from the inside to cover the outside. Then this one becomes, and touching only again the inside, I'm much less likely to contaminate my hands.
Airing out the sick room is a good way to get the germs out and freshen the room. But since influenza often hits in winter,
it may have to be done while they're in the bathroom, but that's probably one of the best ways to clean the air.
Dishes are another item requiring special handling. Cheryl recommends washing them in the dishwasher with both the hot water and the heated dry setting to kill any viruses or bacteria on the tableware. If you must hand wash your dishes, again, use gloves, hot soapy water, a good rinse, and Cheryl recommends an additional rinse in a very diluted bleach water solution, no more than a teaspoon per gallon of water, and allow them to dry on a rack. Disposable dishes are fine too, says Cheryl, but pandemics may present challenges.
We look at pandemics as people all of a sudden starting to be self-contained within their homes. And sure, if you have those things, it's fine to use them, but then maybe there aren't the garbage bin to pick them up either. So we're looking at self-contained units.
Finally, how do you know when a patient needs more professional care?
If you start seeing a patient becoming probably less conscious of what's going on around them, harder to awaken, then you can't stimulate them, of course, to eat or drink either. The fever is not controlled by any of the oral products that you're giving them, so a temperature that goes up to 105 or higher, and especially if they're so weak they can't get up anymore. It may be beyond the caregiver's ability to take care of them at that point in time. So that would be a good time to call the healthcare practitioner.
As you've seen, most of our tips deal with adults. Care of infants and little children may differ slightly. Most, for example, aren't going to be able to wear a mask, and their caregiver may need additional personal protective equipment, such as goggles or gowns. Again, your personal health care provider should guide you. We've talked about a lot of things we need to have on hand: bleach, masks, thermometers, which brings us to preparation, not panic. Just as Coloradans are urged to be prepared for things such as blizzards, being prepared for pandemics requires planning too, but more long-term.
It's not something that you can just say, okay, I'm going to hunker down for 3 weeks and it's all over. You have to keep going about your business, you have to keep doing things, but in a smart way.
Each family will want supplies on hand. How much is up to you. Many emergency preparedness experts say a 2-week supply. Others say a 4-week supply or more. Think about what you would need if supplies in stores weren't readily available, or if your family became ill and couldn't get to the store. Food supplies, dry and canned goods, non-perishables such as canned vegetables, peanut butter, soups, or tuna. Crackers or granola bars also hold fairly well. Water or Gatorade type drinks. And don't forget Fido, not only a supply of pet food, but extra water for your friends. Pharmaceuticals. What over-the-counter meds do you normally like to have on hand that help alleviate your symptoms and fever? Paper products, cleaning supplies, toiletries, and extra supplies of prescription medications if possible. Experts say don't try to do this all at once. Make planning part of your everyday life.
My suggestion is that the next time you go to the store is that you actually pick 1 or 2 items that would help you better prepare for an emergency, and pick up those items, and then you'll be well on your way to becoming prepared.
Another way to get ready is to set a deadline for your family.
Just pick a month, 4 months from now, 6 months from now, and say, are you ready? Because you can't get ready in 2 or 3 days. I mean, it takes a while to get educated and get supplies laid in.
Think of others in your family. Whom would you need to help? What if school is canceled and your children are home? What is your family's communication plan? Do you have some cash on hand for essential items? Many good resources are found on the web these days, including valuable checklists and preparation guides to help your family be prepared, not panicked. 2 good sources include pandemicflu.gov and readycolorado.com. We'll have those websites for you again at the end of this program. Businesses, too, should consider the impact of a pandemic on their operations. Quest Communications, a company so many depend on, says it practices planning for all sorts of emergencies, including pandemics.
We've been actually planning for the possibility of a pandemic since fall of 2005. Unlike natural disasters, which can affect facilities and our network infrastructure, pandemics really focus in on the workforce.
Link says Quest's experienced workforce is an advantage because in emergency situations, many employees could wear different hats, filling in for others in different capacities. For Quest, telecommuting is also an option.
We would certainly use remote access for those that could work from home. We have the ability to roll over critical systems to other locations. We have redundant call centers, for example, where if we're seeing a particular heavy impact in one city, we have the ability to roll over those operations to another city.
Quest also practices for emergencies at all levels of its operations.
Communications between the company and our employees is vital so that they know what to do in terms of responding to make sure that we keep communication services up for state and local government, for hospitals, police, fire, and the like.
Similarly, local and regional governments plan for the possibility of long-term impacts on critical services they provide. The City of Lakewood, for example, plans education programs for employees, keeps extra emergency supplies on hand, and has pandemic planning efforts underway in every department.
The draft police department plan has as their #1 priority providing a police agent going to a site when somebody calls 911. Those services will continue.
To help prevent the spread of germs, the City of Lakewood also began updating restroom facilities with reminders about good hygiene. They also installed touchless towels and soap dispensers and placed waste cans outside the restroom so that a paper towel can be used to open the restroom door, then thrown away. Some say that businesses may need to rethink how they handle inventory.
If transportation cuts down and you are a just-in-time business, you may need to think about inventory a little bit more.
Other considerations. Does your company have policies about social distancing at meetings, or for telecommuting, or making decisions about essential personnel? It's all part of good planning for pandemics or any emergency. Excellent resources and checklists for businesses can also be found online at thereadycolorado.com or pandemicflu.gov. As of July 2007, the CDC and other monitoring organizations had no reports or alerts for bird flu in our country. Scientists and public health experts continue to monitor migratory birds and poultry livestock and say our safeguards provide assurance.
The prevention and biosecurity measures that are in place would prevent the spread of that disease, and it would be responded to whether it's in Colorado or in other states. So if there is an outbreak of influenza, the poultry and food supply will remain safe.
Dr. Rohr says Colorado's Department of Agriculture works with veterinarians, the USDA, and other agencies, such as the Division of Wildlife, to monitor health issues. If bird flu were detected, immediate steps would include quarantine, euthanizing infected birds, and disinfecting the property.
We'll continue to test for birds, we'll continue to educate producers, and just ensure that we have an abundant and safe food supply for the people, not only in Colorado, but the rest of the United States.
Should we be concerned about our food supply? Experts like the U.S. Department of Agriculture say no. But safe handling of poultry is always good practice, they say. Using a thermometer to cook poultry to the proper temperature, at least 165 degrees, kills any viral germs. Washing your hands before and after handling poultry and disinfecting surfaces are also good safeguards in food preparation.
There are things we can do as a society to keep from getting the flu and to lower the death rate dramatically. But they don't involve a vaccine. They just involve some common sense things that we're all going to have to learn.
As we've seen, public health experts, scientists, many businesses, and the government continue to monitor the potential risk of a pandemic developing from the bird flu virus. We encourage you to learn more about what you and your family can do to stay healthy and stay prepared, not panicked. Thanks for joining us.